Hello and welcome back to the William Gomez podcast. I am William Gomez and I'm grateful to have you here. Today we explore one of Lacan's most influential ideas. It is a moment he believed shaped the entire structure of human identity. He called it the mirror stage, but it is not simply about a child gazing into a physical mirror. It is about how each of us comes to recognize ourselves, how the ego forms, and why our sense of who we are is always more fragile than it appears on the surface. When Lacan described the mirror stage, he was trying to capture something universal, something every human being must navigate, whether or not they ever stand in front of an actual mirror. To understand the mirror stage, imagine a very young child between 6 and 18 months old. At this stage, the child's internal world is not unified. Their body feels scattered, their movements feel uncoordinated. They reach out, fall, crawl, and turn without a clear sense of boundaries or stability. Inside, life feels fragmented, full of sensations that do not yet form a single story. Then something remarkable happens. The child encounters their reflection. It might be in a mirror, a shiny surface, or even the steady gaze of a caregiver responding to them in that moment. They see a complete image, the image of a whole body. It is stable, upright, and cohesive. It does not stumble. It does not wobble. It appears self contained and complete. Lacan believed that this moment creates a powerful feeling of recognition. The child feels an emotional spark, a surge of excitement, and identifies with the image even though it does not match their inner experience. The reflection gives them a version of themselves that feels coherent. The child says, in their own preverbal way, "That is me." Lacan called this a foundational identification, the first step in forming a sense of self. But this identification comes with a tension that will follow us throughout life. The image in the mirror is more stable than the child feels. It is an ideal. It is a picture of mastery and control. The child's inner world, by contrast, is full of impulses they cannot yet manage. The child therefore identifies with an image that surpasses them. This mismatch between the image and the inner experience creates what Lacan called the alienation of the ego. The self is built on something outside itself, something the child must grow towards but can never fully become. This is why Lacan described the ego as a fiction, not in the sense of being false or meaningless, but in the sense of being constructed. It is something assembled through images, reflections, and the gaze of others. From the beginning, the ego depends on something that feels complete from the outside but does not match the complexity of the inner world. This gap becomes part of the human experience. It shapes our insecurities, our ambitions, and our longing to appear confident, capable, or put together even when we feel uncertain inside. The mirror stage also explains our lifelong sensitivity to comparison. In that early moment, the child does not only see their own image, they begin to see the images of others. They recognize that other people have bodies, faces, and expressions. They compare themselves even without words. This is the seed of rivalry. The child learns to measure themselves against others. They want to be as unified as the image they see, and later as competent as the people around them. This comparison becomes part of the imaginary order, the realm of images and identifications that structure so much of our emotional life. A crucial part of the mirror stage is the presence of another person. The child does not understand the mirror alone. A caregiver stands nearby, offering gestures, sounds, or encouragement. The caregiver might smile, point, or simply hold the child steady. This presence confirms the connection between the child and the image. It communicates without words, yes, that is you. This early affirmation anchors the child's identification, but it also introduces the importance of the other in forming who we become. From the start, our identity depends on the recognition and naming provided by someone outside us. Lacan believed that the mirror stage is more than an anecdote. It is a structural moment that explains why we feel torn between how we appear and how we feel. The ego holds on to the promise of that early image. It tries to maintain coherence even when life becomes difficult. This is why people sometimes cling to an ideal image of themselves, refusing to acknowledge vulnerability. It is also why we can feel ashamed when we fall short of the standard we imagine. Our earliest experience taught us that the image is perfect, while the lived body is not. That tension stays with us. Understanding the mirror stage also sheds light on why we seek validation from others. If our sense of self was formed through the gaze of someone else, it makes sense that we continue to rely on others to stabilize how we feel about ourselves. Approval, attention, and recognition feel important because they mirror back the image that first gave us a sense of unity. This does not mean we are weak or overly dependent. It simply reflects how the ego was formed. The self is social from the beginning. The mirror stage also prepares the pathway toward language. Once the child begins to enter the world of words, the image becomes tied to language. Words like I, me, and you stabilize the sense of who the child believes themselves to be. But these words also come with rules, expectations, and boundaries. They limit, define, and organize. The mirror stage, therefore, lies between the imaginary and the symbolic orders. First, the child encounters themselves as an image. Then they learn to articulate that image through language. Identity takes shape at the point where vision meets speech. Let us consider how the mirror stage continues throughout life. Many adults still live between the image they try to project and the fragmented feeling they hold inside. Think about the moments when someone tries to appear calm, even when overwhelmed, or when someone performs confidence while feeling anxious. The ego acts as a shield, protecting us from the chaotic or uncertain aspects of our inner experience. Yet, this can also create suffering. When we cling too tightly to an ideal image, we lose the chance to be honest with ourselves and others. We become trapped in presenting perfection. The mirror stage also explains why people are often drawn to ideals. The ideal body, the ideal partner, the ideal career, or the ideal lifestyle all echo the original promise of unity. The ego continues to chase images that feel complete, stable, and desirable. These images inspire us, but they can also mislead. They create expectations that cannot always be fulfilled. Lacan believed that part of growing psychologically involves recognizing the limits of the image, allowing ourselves to accept the complexity beneath it. This idea also helps us understand the emotional struggles that arise from social media and modern living. We are surrounded by curated images of other people. These images appear polished, composed, and whole. They resemble the mirror image in their promise of perfection. When we compare ourselves to these images, we feel that gap again between our lived experience and the ideal we see. Understanding the mirror stage helps us respond to this with more compassion. It reminds us that images can never capture the depth of reality and that the self is more than what can be reflected. The mirror stage does not tell us that the self is false. It tells us that the self is constructed. It tells us that Our identity is shaped through interactions, images, and language. It tells us that the human journey involves holding together the contradictory parts of our experience, the fragmented and the unified, the vulnerable and the competent, the inner world and the outer image. By returning to Lacan's idea, we can learn to soften our expectations of ourselves and others. We can recognize that the longing for coherence is natural, but it is not the whole truth. Beneath the image lies the subject, a deeper part of who we are that does not need to be perfect. It needs to be recognized, listened to, and approached with kindness. In our next episode, we will explore the imaginary order in more detail. This will help us understand how images, reflections, and identifications continue to structure our relationships and shape the ways we see ourselves. But for now, I hope this expanded reflection on the mirror stage gives you space to rethink how identity forms and why we often feel divided between who we want to be and who we truly are. Thank you for listening. This is the William Gomes podcast. Take care of yourself, stay curious, and I will speak with you again soon.